In this video, we're going to explore a fundamental concept in React called lifting state up. This is a technique used when you have multiple components that need to share and modify the same data. Instead of each component managing its own separate copy of the data, we move the state to their common parent component. By the end of this video, you'll understand why and how to lift state up in your React applications. It's a fundamental React pattern for sharing state between sibling components. Let's consider a common problem in React development. How do sibling components share state when they don't have a direct relationship? Imagine you have two components, component A and component B. Component A has a state variable called count, with a value of 5. Now, component B needs access to this count value. But since they are siblings, they cannot directly access each other's state. This is where we need a solution to enable communication and data sharing between these components. The solution to the problem of sharing state between sibling components is to lift state up. This involves moving the shared state to the closest common parent component of the components that need it. In our example, we would move the count state to the parent component. Then the parent component passes the count value as a prop to both component A and component B. Now both components can access and use the same count value, managed by their parent. This ensures that the data is consistent across the application. Before lifting the state up, each component manages its own state independently. Let's look at the code for component A. It uses the useState hook to create a state variable called count, initialized to 0. The component renders a paragraph displaying the count value and a button that, when clicked, increments the count using the setCount function. Notice that component A is completely self-contained and doesn't share its state with any other component. This can lead to problems when other components need to access or modify the same data. After lifting the state up, the parent component manages the shared state, and the child components receive the state and the setState function as props. Here, the parent component uses the useState hook to manage the count state. Then in the return statement, it renders component A and component B, passing the count state and the setCount function as props to component A, and just the count state as props to component B. Now the child components can access and update the shared state through the props they receive from the parent. Let's examine the implementation of the child components after lifting the state up. Component A receives count and setCount as props. It renders a button that, when clicked, calls the setCount function passed down from the parent, incrementing the count. Component B receives only the count prop and simply displays its value in an H2 tag. Notice that neither child component manages its own state. Instead, they rely on the props they receive from the parent to access and update the shared state. Lifting state up provides several key benefits in React applications. First, it enables synchronized state across multiple components. This means that when the state is updated in one component, all other components that depend on that state are automatically updated as well. Second, it establishes a single source of truth for shared data. This eliminates inconsistencies and makes it easier to manage and reason about your application's state. Finally, it leads to a cleaner architecture with clear data flow. The data flows predictably from the parent component down to the child components, making the application easier to understand and maintain. Here are some best practices to keep in mind when lifting state up in your React applications. Number 1. Lift state to the closest common ancestor. This means that you should move the state to the lowest possible component in the hierarchy that is still a parent of all the components that need the state. Number 2. Pass down both state and setter functions as props. This allows the child components to not only access the state but also update it. Number 3. Keep components pure and predictable. This means that the components should only render based on the props they receive, and should not have any side effects. If you like this video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Visit CodeLucky.com for more such useful content.